The vast darkness of space lit up as a massive vessel emerged from hyperspace near Jupiter's orbit. The ship's crystalline structure caught the distant sunlight, sending rainbow-like reflections across its surface. It was an Imperial Dominion vessel, nearly the size of Earth's moon, and it carried within it the pride of 1,000 conquered worlds. Admiral Marcus stood at the command center, his tall frame casting a shadow across the holographic displays before him. His dark uniform, adorned with medals from countless successful conquests, seemed to absorb the soft blue light from the surrounding screens. He had led the Empire's expansion for 30 years, but something about this new target made him uneasy. Initial scans of the third planet are complete, Admiral reported his second-in-command, Commander Reed. The younger officer's fingers danced across the floating displays, bringing up detailed readings of Earth. The civilization appears to be at development stage 3, barely capable of reaching their own moon. Marcus studied the data with experienced eyes. The planet below showed all the typical signs of a developing world. Scattered cities connected by primitive transportation networks, basic satellite systems in low orbit, and power generation methods that relied heavily on fossil fuels. It should have been a routine conquest, yet something didn't feel right. "Show me their global communication networks," Marcus ordered, his voice deep and measured. The displays shifted, revealing the internet infrastructure of Earth. It was surprisingly extensive for a Stage 3 civilization, but still nothing compared to the Empire's quantum networks. As they watched, more data streamed in from the Empire's advanced sensors. The planet's military capabilities seemed limited: nuclear weapons, a handful of space stations, and conventional armies. Nothing that could stand against even a single Imperial warship, let alone the fleet of 50 vessels now positioned throughout the solar system. Their population centers are heavily concentrated near coastal regions, Commander Reed noted, highlighting several major cities. Standard procedure would suggest we begin with demonstration strikes at these locations. Marcus raised his hand, silently commanding patience. In his 3 decades of expanding the Empire's reach, he had learned to trust his instincts. Launch deep scan probes first. I want to know everything about this world before we make our presence known. The command deck hummed with activity as sleek, metallic probes launched from the Imperial flagship. Each one was smaller than a human car, but packed with sensors that could detect everything from underground bunkers to atmospheric composition. They spread out across Earth's orbit, their sensors penetrating deep into the planet's surface. "Sir," called out one of the sensor operators, "we're detecting some unusual energy readings from their ocean floors." The officer paused, rechecking his instruments. "But they're intermittent, possibly just geological activity." Marcus moved closer to the main display, studying the readings carefully. The energy signatures were indeed strange, appearing and disappearing so quickly that they might easily be dismissed as instrument errors. But the Empire's technology didn't make mistakes. "Continue monitoring those anomalies," he commanded, "and prepare a first contact package. It's time to let them know we're here." He turned to face the vast viewing window, watching as Earth slowly rotated below them, its blue oceans and white clouds hiding whatever secrets it might hold. The Empire had encountered thousands of civilizations across the galaxy. Some fought back, others surrendered immediately, but all eventually became part of the greater Imperial whole. Earth would be no different, just another jewel in the Empire's crown. Or so they thought. As the probes continued their silent work and the Imperial fleet maintained its position, none of them noticed the subtle changes in Earth's magnetic field. None of them recognized that the seemingly random patterns of satellite movements were actually creating a complex observation network. And none of them realized that deep beneath the peaceful surface of this apparently primitive world, something ancient and powerful was beginning to wake up. The first move in this cosmic chess game had been made. The Empire had arrived, confident in its superior technology and overwhelming military might. But they were about to learn that sometimes the most dangerous opponent is the one that appears harmless. 300 feet beneath the Rocky Mountains, in a room that officially didn't exist, Earth's military leaders gathered around a massive circular table. The chamber's walls were lined with screens showing real-time data from every satellite and sensor pointed at the alien fleet. General Thompson stood at the head of the table, his weathered face illuminated by the soft blue glow of holographic displays. "Ladies and gentlemen," he began, his voice steady despite the weight of the moment. "For the past 72 hours, we've been monitoring the Imperial fleet's movements. Their probes have been scanning our planet, and they think they're being subtle about it." A few knowing smiles appeared around the table. The general gestured, and a new hologram appeared above the table, showing the locations of all 50 Imperial vessels. They've positioned themselves in a standard conquest formation. We've seen this before in the data our deep space monitors collected from other systems they've invaded. Colonel Baker, a sharp-minded woman with graying hair, leaned forward. "Have they detected any of our true capabilities?" The question made everyone in the room tense slightly. They all knew what was hidden beneath Earth's carefully maintained facade of technological simplicity. "No," Thompson replied, allowing himself a small smile. "The quantum shielding is holding perfectly. To their sensors, we look exactly like what we want them to see. A young civilization just beginning to reach for the stars." The room's main screen switched to show readings from one of Earth's hidden quantum sensors. The Imperial probes were visible as bright dots, moving in precise patterns across the globe. But beneath that display, another layer of information showed something far more interesting: the subtle ways Earth's defensive systems were already analyzing and cataloging every detail of Imperial technology. "Our ancestors chose isolation for a reason," Thompson continued, bringing up historical records that few humans ever saw. "When they reached the pinnacle of technological advancement 10,000 years ago, they saw what power did to civilizations. They saw how empires rose and fell, how conquest led to corruption. They chose a different path." The screen showed images of ancient facilities, built with technology that even now would seem like magic to most of humanity. These facilities had been hidden beneath oceans, inside mountains, and even in plain sight, disguised as ordinary structures. "For thousands of years, we've maintained this deception," said Colonel Baker. "Every generation, only a few are chosen to know the truth. We advance publicly at a careful pace, making sure we never draw too much attention. But now we have to decide." Thompson finished for her. "The Empire expects us to either surrender or try to fight back with what they think we have. They're preparing their standard invasion procedure: demonstrate overwhelming force, crush any resistance, and absorb us into their empire." A young major named Robert spoke up from the far end of the table. "Why don't we just show them everything now? One display of our real technology would send them running." Thompson shook his head. "Because that's not how we do things. Our ancestors understood something important. The moment you show your full strength, you become a target. Not just for the Empire, but for everyone. No, we need to handle this the way we've handled everything for 10,000 years, with patience, wisdom, and just enough force to make our point." The room fell silent as a new alert flashed across the screens. The Imperial probes were increasing their scanning intensity, focusing particularly on Earth's major cities. "They're preparing for their first demonstration of force," Baker noted, studying the data. "Standard Imperial procedure is to destroy an uninhabited area first, as a warning." Thompson straightened his uniform and looked at each person in the room. "Well then, I think it's time we gave them a demonstration of our own. Not of our full capabilities, just enough to make them reconsider their choices." He turned to the main control panel. "Wake up the lunar defense grid. Level 1 only. Let's not frighten them too badly." As the commands were entered, deep within Earth's artificial moon, systems that had slept for centuries began to stir. The Empire was about to learn that sometimes the quietest civilizations are the ones you should fear the most. At exactly noon Greenwich Mean Time, Every screen on Earth flickered. Mobile phones, computers, televisions, and even digital billboards in Times Square went dark for a moment before displaying the same image: a stern-faced Admiral Marcus of the Imperial Fleet. "People of Earth," his voice boomed in every language simultaneously, "I speak to you as a representative of the Galactic Imperial Dominion. Our empire spans thousands of worlds, bringing order and progress to all who join us." His words were calm and practiced, delivered with the confidence of someone who had given this speech dozens of times before. In homes and offices across the planet, people stared at their screens. Some panicked, others recorded the message on backup devices, while many simply watched in stunned silence. This was humanity's first official contact with alien life, though not quite as sudden as the Empire believed. "We have observed your civilization," Marcus continued, his image crystal clear on every display. "You stand at the beginning of your journey to the stars. The Empire offers you the opportunity to advance under our guidance. Your world will become part of something greater than you can imagine." Inside the Mountain Command Center, General Thompson and his team watched the transmission with carefully controlled expressions. Colonel Baker was already analyzing the signal, confirming what they had suspected. The Empire was using relatively primitive broadcast technology, easy for them to intercept and understand. "Your current level of technology has been assessed," Marcus declared, his voice taking on a harder edge. "While admirable for a young civilization, you have no means to resist Imperial integration. We do not wish to cause unnecessary harm. Surrender now, and your transition into the Empire will be peaceful." The Admiral's image zoomed out, showing a holographic display of Earth behind him. "You have 48 of your hours to submit your response. To demonstrate the futility of resistance, we will now provide a small example of Imperial power." On cue, one of the Imperial ships fired a beam of energy at an uninhabited area of the Sahara Desert. The blast created a perfect circle of glass 3 miles wide, visible from space. It was meant to terrify, to show Earth's population how helpless they were against such advanced technology. In the command center, Thompson received messages from hidden facilities around the world. Everything was working exactly as planned. The Empire's show of force had been precisely what their predictive models expected. "Time to respond," Baker asked, her hand hovering over a control panel that hadn't been activated in centuries. Thompson nodded. "Level 1 response only. Remember, we're not trying to start a war. Just end one before it begins." Deep beneath the Pacific Ocean, in the Mariana Trench, ancient machinery hummed to life. Similar facilities in the Atlantic, Indian, and Arctic Oceans activated in perfect synchronization. The systems had been maintained in secret for thousands of years, waiting for this exact moment. On the Imperial flagship, Admiral Marcus was reviewing the footage of their demonstration strike when alerts began blaring. Every probe they had sent to study Earth suddenly stopped transmitting. In the span of 3 seconds, billions of credits worth of Imperial technology simply ceased to exist. "Report," Marcus demanded, watching as his sensor officers scrambled to understand what was happening. "Unknown energy signature, sir," one officer called out. It just erased our probes. Not destroyed. Erased. There's not even debris." Before Marcus could respond, every screen on his ship displayed a new message. It was short, appearing in the Empire's own language. "We stayed quiet to avoid unnecessary conflict. This is your only warning. Leave." The message vanished as quickly as it had appeared, leaving the Imperial command crews staring at their screens in confusion. None of their scans had shown technology capable of this. According to their data, Earth shouldn't even be able to detect their probes, let alone eliminate them so completely. In the mountain facility, Thompson watched the Imperial fleet's reaction through their quantum sensors. "Send the secondary message," he ordered. "Let's make sure they understand exactly what happened." The day that started with an Imperial demand for Earth's surrender was about to become the day the Empire learned why some civilizations choose to appear weak. In the depths of the Mariana Trench, Massive doors that had been disguised as natural rock formations slowly opened. Water rushed past ancient but perfectly maintained metal surfaces, revealing a facility that stretched for miles in every direction. Similar events were happening at key points across Earth's oceans, each movement precisely timed and carefully hidden from Imperial sensors. Inside the Rocky Mountain Command Center, General Thompson watched as systems that had slept for millennia came online. The wall screen showed green status indicators from facilities most of humanity didn't know existed. Quantum arrays under the Pacific, gravity manipulation systems in the Antarctic, and energy matrices that spanned entire continents. All deep-sea facilities report ready, Colonel Baker announced, her fingers moving across her control panel. The Atlantic array is syncing with Pacific systems. Arctic installation is online. Indian Ocean Quantum Core is at full power. Thompson nodded, his expression grave. Begin power-up sequence for the planetary defense grid. Remember, level 1 responses only. We don't want to reveal everything at once. Beneath the world's oceans, massive quantum computers that had been disguised as simple undersea servers revealed their true nature. These machines didn't just process data. They manipulated the very fabric of reality. Each one had more computing power than the entire visible technology of Earth combined. "Sir," a young lieutenant called out, "we're detecting increased scanning attempts from the Imperial fleet. They're trying to figure out what happened to their probes." Thompson allowed himself a small smile. "Let them look. The quantum shielding will show them exactly what we want them to see. Nothing but ocean floors and regular seismic activity." In orbit, Admiral Marcus was growing increasingly frustrated. His ship's sensors, capable of detecting the smallest energy signatures across light years, somehow couldn't make sense of what was happening on Earth. Every scan showed a primitive world, yet their probes had been eliminated with technology that shouldn't exist at this development stage. "Launch secondary probe wave," Marcus ordered, his voice tight with tension. "Full spectrum analysis. I want to know everything about this planet." The Imperial ships released hundreds of new probes, each one more sophisticated than the last. They entered Earth's atmosphere at different angles, using various scanning technologies to try and pierce whatever was hiding the planet's true capabilities. Deep under the Antarctic ice, ancient machinery tracked each probe's descent. The facility there had been built long before humans officially discovered the continent, its systems designed to analyze and counter any possible threat to Earth. "They're getting curious," Baker noted, watching the probe deployment. "Should we give them something else to think about?" Thompson studied the tactical display. "Activate the atmospheric defense matrix. Let's show them why sending probes into our atmosphere isn't a good idea." Across Earth's surface, hidden emitters began generating a field that was invisible to both human and Imperial sensors. As the new probes entered the atmosphere, they encountered something impossible. Their own signals, perfectly reflected back at them, but slightly out of phase. In space, the Imperial sensor officers watched in confusion as their probes began reporting contradictory data. Some showed Earth as completely uninhabited. Others indicated technology levels far beyond even Imperial understanding, and some simply stopped working altogether. "Impossible," one officer muttered, staring at his readings. "According to this, their entire atmosphere is what?" Marcus demanded. "Is artificially maintained, sir, but that would require technology thousands of years beyond what we're seeing. It can't be right." In the mountain facility, Thompson received word that the last Imperial probe had been neutralized. Earth's defenses had performed perfectly, revealing enough to make the Empire question everything, but not enough to show their full capabilities. "Initial defensive response complete," Baker reported. "All systems functioning at optimal levels. No detection of our true technological base by Imperial sensors." Thompson looked at the main screen, showing the confused Imperial fleet regrouping near Jupiter. "They're starting to understand," he said quietly. "But they haven't seen anything yet. Prepare the lunar defense grid for activation. It's time to show them why Earth has remained isolated for so long." The Empire had wanted to see Earth's true nature. They were about to get their wish, though not in the way they expected. The moon hung silently in space, looking exactly as it had for billions of years. At least, that's what the Imperial sensors showed. Admiral Marcus stared at it through the flagship's main viewport, his doubts growing with each passing minute. First the probe destruction, then the atmospheric anomalies, and now his best sensors couldn't agree on what they were detecting from Earth's only natural satellite. "Launch a direct scan of the lunar surface," he ordered. "Maximum power." The command was carried out immediately. A powerful scanning beam shot from the Imperial flagship, meant to penetrate deep into the moon's core. What happened next would be recorded in Imperial history as the moment everything changed. As the scan beam approached the lunar surface, it simply disappeared. Not reflected, not absorbed, just gone. Then, across the surface of the moon, patterns of light began to appear. Ancient symbols, each miles wide, glowed with a soft blue luminescence that hadn't been seen in thousands of years. In the Rocky Mountain Command Center, General Thompson watched the Empire's reaction through their quantum sensors. "They took the bait," he said. "Activate the lunar defense grid. Full display mode." Colonel Baker's fingers danced across her control panel. "Lunar grid powering up. All systems nominal. The Empire's about to learn why we built it." The moon's surface began to shift. What looked like craters and mountains started moving, revealing themselves as massive doors and weapon ports. The entire satellite was transforming, showing its true nature as the most powerful defensive platform ever created by human hands. On the Imperial flagship, alarms blared as their sensors finally detected the truth. The moon wasn't natural, it was artificial. A constructed sphere of technologies so advanced they had been mistaken for geological features. "Impossible," Marcus whispered, watching as sections of the lunar surface reconfigured themselves. "Their civilization is supposed to be primitive. This structure, it would take thousands of years to build." "Sir," a sensor officer called out, his voice shaking, "we're detecting energy readings from the lunar surface. They're beyond our scale of measurement." Thompson stood in the command center, watching the display with calm satisfaction. "Send the final warning message. Let's make sure they understand exactly what they're dealing with." Every screen on every Imperial ship suddenly displayed the same message, written in glowing letters that seemed to float in the air. "Our moon is not natural. It never was. We built it before your empire existed. We have remained quiet not out of weakness, but choice. Leave our solar system, or we will demonstrate why we chose isolation over conquest." The message faded, replaced by technical readouts that made the Imperial scientists gasp. The data showed weapon systems that shouldn't exist, power sources that defied Imperial physics, and defensive capabilities that made their fleet look primitive in comparison. Marcus stared at the readings, his face pale. The Empire had conquered thousands of worlds, but they had never encountered anything like this, a civilization that could build an artificial moon and hide it in plain sight for millennia wasn't just powerful. They were beyond anything the Empire had ever faced. In the mountain facility, Baker monitored the Imperial fleet's reactions. "They're powering up their engines," she reported. "Looks like they might be preparing to leave." "Not yet," Thompson said quietly. "They need one final push. Activate the lunar cannon. Minimum power, warning shot only." A section of the moon's surface split apart, revealing a weapon that made the Imperial ships look tiny in comparison. A beam of pure energy, precisely controlled and deliberately weak, shot past the Imperial fleet. Where it passed, space itself seemed to ripple. On the Imperial flagship, Marcus watched the energy beam with a mixture of awe and terror. His sensors showed that the beam was operating at less than 1% power, yet it contained enough energy to destroy his entire fleet. "All ships," he commanded, his voice steady despite his fear, "prepare for immediate withdrawal. We were wrong about Earth. They're not primitive. They're not even our equals. They're something else entirely." The moon continued its transformation. each new revelation making it clear that humanity had been hiding capabilities that the Empire couldn't begin to comprehend. Admiral Marcus stood in his flagship's analysis chamber, surrounded by the Empire's best scientists. Holographic displays showed data from their latest scans of Earth, each reading more impossible than the last. The artificial moon had been shocking enough, but what they were discovering about Earth itself defied everything the Empire thought it knew about technological advancement. "Show me the ocean floor readings again," Marcus ordered, his voice tight with tension. One of the scientists, Dr. Wells, brought up a three-dimensional map of Earth's oceans. "The structures we're detecting are massive," Dr. Wells explained, highlighting several areas. "The facility in the Pacific Ocean alone is larger than our biggest space station, but that's not the most interesting part." He pressed a few buttons, and new data appeared. "These facilities are generating quantum fields we've never seen before. They're not just computing centers. They're reality manipulation engines." Another scientist stepped forward, pointing to different readings. "The planet's magnetic field isn't natural either. What we thought was a simple planetary feature is actually a controlled defense system. It can be focused and directed like a weapon, but its complexity suggests that's not its primary purpose." Marcus watched as more data poured in. Each new scan revealed another layer of Earth's deception. What they had mistaken for primitive satellites were actually parts of a vast observation network. The planet's weather patterns themselves showed signs of careful management, maintained by technology that the Empire's best minds couldn't comprehend. In the Rocky Mountain Command Center, General Thompson and Colonel Baker monitored the Imperial fleet's frantic scanning attempts. Each scan was allowed to reveal just a little more, carefully showing the Empire exactly how outmatched they were. "They're particularly interested in the quantum arrays," Baker noted, watching the Imperial scan patterns. "Should we show them the temporal shields as well?" Thompson shook his head. "No need. They've seen enough to understand. Any more might cause panic rather than respect." He studied the main display, showing the Imperial fleet's position. "Activate the historical archives. Let's show them why we chose this path." Deep beneath the Pacific Ocean, one of the quantum arrays activated a special protocol. The Imperial ship's computers began receiving data, historical records that had been preserved for thousands of years. They showed Earth's ancient decision, the moment when humanity reached its technological peak and chose a different path. On the Imperial flagship, Marcus watched the records with growing amazement. The images showed a civilization that had achieved technological supremacy long ago. They had mastered energy, gravity, and even time itself. But instead of using these achievements to conquer, they had chosen to hide. "This data," one of the scientists said, his voice filled with awe, "it shows they achieved this level of technology over 10,000 years ago. They could have built an empire that would make ours look primitive. Instead, they chose isolation." The historical records continued, showing how Earth had carefully maintained its deception. Each generation, a select few were chosen to maintain their true capabilities while the rest of humanity was allowed to develop naturally. The technology wasn't hidden to deceive, but to preserve something the Empire had never considered: the natural course of human development. "They're not showing us this to threaten us," Marcus realized, understanding finally dawning. "They're showing us why they won't join us. They've already seen where the path of empire leads." In the command center, Thompson received word that the last of the historical data had been transmitted. "They're starting to understand," he said to Baker. "Prepare the final revelation." The Imperial fleet's sensors suddenly detected something new. The space around Earth seemed to shift, revealing layers of defensive systems that had been completely invisible before. The technology wasn't just advanced. It operated on principles that the Empire had never even theorized. "Sir," one of the Imperial officers called out, his voice shaking, "these readings, according to this, they could have detected our approach months before we arrived. They could have stopped us before we even entered the solar system." Marcus nodded slowly, finally understanding the true message Earth was sending. This wasn't just a demonstration of power, it was a lesson. Earth hadn't stayed hidden out of fear or weakness. They had chosen a harder path, one that required more strength than conquest ever could. The Empire had come expecting to find a primitive world ready for conquest. Instead, they had found something far more powerful, a civilization wise enough to know the true value of peace. Admiral Marcus stood alone in his private chamber aboard the Imperial flagship, staring at the final data compilation from Earth. For the first time in his 30 years of service, he was about to do something no Imperial admiral had ever done: order a full retreat without firing a single shot in battle. On his personal screen, he reviewed the message that would be sent to Imperial High Command. Earth is to be classified as a protected independent world. No further contact attempts authorized. Reason: Technology Level Omega. Level Omega. It was a classification that had existed in Imperial records, but had never been used. It was reserved for civilizations so advanced that any attempt at conquest would be not just futile, but potentially devastating to the Empire itself. Admiral. His communications officer called through the intercom. Earth is sending another transmission. Put it through, Marcus replied, straightening his uniform. The image that appeared before him showed General Thompson, sitting calmly at what appeared to be a simple wooden desk. The contrast between the seeming simplicity and what Marcus now knew about Earth's true capabilities wasn't lost on him. Admiral Marcus, Thompson began, his voice steady and calm. We appreciate your careful consideration of our situation. We've observed your actions since our demonstration, and we believe you understand our position now. Marcus nodded slowly. Your world is remarkable, General. The Empire has never encountered anything like it. A civilization that achieved such power and chose not to use it for conquest. It challenges everything we believed about progress and development. Thompson smiled slightly. That's precisely why we maintain our isolation, Admiral. Every civilization must find its own path. Forcing our advancement on others would rob them of their journey, their choices, their potential to develop in unique ways. In the Rocky Mountain Command Center, Colonel Baker monitored the conversation while watching the Imperial fleet's movements. Every ship was slowly repositioning, preparing for departure. Their weapons were powered down, their scanning systems inactive. They had learned their lesson well. Before you leave, Thompson continued, we have a gift for you. A small demonstration of what's possible when technology serves wisdom rather than conquest. He nodded to Baker, who pressed a sequence of commands into her console. The Imperial flagship's computers received a data packet. As Marcus opened it, his eyes widened. It contained specifications for a simple energy conversion system, more efficient than anything the Empire had, but not so advanced as to disrupt their natural development. This is, Marcus began, studying the specifications. A stepping stone, Thompson finished for him. Something your scientists could have discovered within a decade anyway. We're not giving you any great secrets, just nudging you toward a slightly better path. Marcus understood the message behind the gift. Earth could have simply threatened or destroyed them, but instead, they chose to help, in a small, carefully measured way that respected the Empire's own journey. There will be those in the Empire who won't believe my report, Marcus said. They'll want to see for themselves. Thompson's expression remained calm. We know. We've had to discourage curious visitors before. Rest assured, any future expeditions will receive the same warning we gave you, though we hope the Empire is wise enough to avoid that necessity. In space, the Imperial fleet began its departure preparations. Each ship's crew had been changed by what they'd witnessed. They had come expecting to find primitives, and instead found teachers. One last thing, Admiral, Thompson said as the transmission prepared to end. What you saw today was just a fraction of our capabilities. We showed you enough to make our point, but please understand, if the Empire ever returns with hostile intentions, our response will not be so gentle. Marcus nodded, understanding completely. The Empire had not just found a powerful civilization. They had glimpsed a possible future for themselves, a future where technology served wisdom rather than power. As the Imperial fleet engaged their engines and prepared to leave the solar system, Earth's defense systems began powering down. The artificial moon returned to its disguise as a natural satellite. The quantum arrays in the oceans resumed their silent vigil. And humanity continued its chosen path, advancing quietly, growing wisely, and protecting the right of all civilizations to find their own way among the stars. In the end, the Empire hadn't just failed to conquer Earth. They had learned perhaps the most valuable lesson of all. Sometimes, the greatest power lies not in what you can do, but in what you choose not to do.